back for another episode of Girls in the Grandstand, and this week we will be talking about the Hungarian Grand Prix. As you can probably see, Kay is looking a little bit different. Unfortunately, she can't join us, but we are joined with a good friend of Girls in the Grandstand. We've got Ryan with us. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome in.
Welcome
Pleasure.
to Girls in the Grandstand.
Great to be here.
Happy to hear it. So what did you guys think of the Grand Prix yesterday?
It's a bit of a mixed bag because if you take Max Verstappen out of the equation, it was a good race. It was a cracker of a race.
As always.
Obviously,
in his own little race.
yeah. Obviously, if you can't tell, McLaren fanboy here. Great performance from Lando again. Oscar was a bit unlucky, which we'll probably go into.
Yeah.
What happened to him, but it's just nice to see someone else than Verstappen get pole again. So,
yeah.
Which is good.
I did enjoy that. I enjoyed the qualifying this week. It was a good one.
Sure. What about you, Jen? What do you think?
Let's just listen to talk about the race. The qualifying for me.
I think we're going to have to start a GoFundMe for Jen's therapy at this point.
Yeah, I think Alpine should pay for it at this point, if I'm honest.
Why not?
It's just...
Yeah, we'll drop him a message and see how we can get that arranged for you.
It's just, I don't even have any words anymore. It's just what can you
do? Terrible luck for them in the race yesterday, wasn't it?
It's like neither of it was their fault either. Just got caught in
the Hungarian
Bottas. Oh yeah.
Still got PTSD from 2021 from that as well.
I think who was it? Guan Yu Zhou's probably played a bit of Wii bowling and got some lessons from Bottas from 2 years ago. So
yeah, taking pointers from his teammate.
Yeah, I mean, sucks for Guan Yu Zhou considering P5 in an Alfa Romeo is. I was like, what's going on here? Like, where's this pace come from?
Both of the Alphas on qualifying day, I was just like, where have they come from? Like, not to say it like, in a bad way, but you don't really sort of think of them on a race weekend because they're one of those that are always sort of back down there. I was quite surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I know Alpha did bring upgrades this week to the track, and I think their car is sort of suits the medium to slow corners like Hungary has. That's kind of helped them a little bit, and maybe their car suits the harder tyre in quick qualifying. We saw in Q1 he was the fastest in Q1, so maybe their car's suited for that tyre. But then as it carried on, I was like, oh, okay, their car's pretty decent, could get some points today. But we know what happened at the start.
Unfortunately. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see where they ended up if that hadn't happened.
Yeah, I did feel bad for him because he's obviously a nice guy and he didn't mean to do it, but it was a chain reaction at the end of the day. He went to Ricardo, went into Ocon, and then Ocon went over the top of Pierre. It's just there was no way they could have saved them 2 cars.
Not at all. What did we all think of the qualifying format this weekend?
I think it's a good idea. I think, as it showed with the results, it brings unpredictability. We saw Guan Yu Zhou as a P1, Lando got faster in Q2, and we won't say what happened in Q3 until Hamilton saved us all from Max Verstappen again. I think it's a good idea. I think what they're doing, the reason behind it, I think is a good idea because I think they're trying to save tyres, building them, being a bit more environmentally friendly with them, in terms of construction. But I can understand from the driver's point of view. I think Lando mentioned it about if it wasn't for, I think it was FP1 or 2 where it rained, then obviously they wouldn't be doing a lot of running.
No.
Because of I think there's 11 sets they've got what they had for this week, compared to 13. So I think it's sort of like I'm like 70-30 on it in terms of percentage of success. I think it's great, as we saw, George Russell got knocked out in Q1, Sainz got knocked out in Q2, and I mean Lando and Max nearly didn't get out. They had to pull out a great final run in Q2 to get in, and
yeah,
just creates this unpredictability, and I love it. I think it's great. I don't know what you two think to it.
I was quite negative going into the weekend about it. I'll be honest. I was like, why do they need to try this? I get the sustainability side of things, but why not just give them 2 less sets of tyres and let them do what they've always done as teams and decided what strategies they do with their tyres? But I think, like you said, from the results and the unpredictability and the excitement of qualifying on Saturday, I think early signs show that it could definitely work.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was somewhat different. And like you said, we got someone different on pole. And I think we need that back at the minute, because it's feeling very much like it's Max's show and people are just turning up to watch him. And he's just having a whale of a time out front. He's just chilling 20, 30 seconds ahead. Just having a great time.
Yes.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen from stats and telemetry and stuff that I see there's a Twitter user that I follow who displays telemetry of like which particular mini sectors that a car is good at. And as you can see, Lando was quick in the middle part with the fast left right after I think it's the first chicane, the tight right left in sector 2. He was quite quick there, and then you saw Hamilton was quicker in the final sector. Max was just quick in the straight line. We all know that. Even though I've heard or seen about their DRS not being as strong now as it was before. We can see, like, from the top speeds, I think they're about a couple of kilometers now quicker, but obviously we saw in the race it was just too damn quick, because obviously everyone's got DRS, have they? So
No.
But I think back on the whole this new quali format, I can't remember who said it. I think it was maybe Ted Kravitz or Martin Brundle was talking about it. If they got rid of like a spare wet intermediate or wet tire, we know it's going to be dry, they can just use an extra hard or an extra medium tire, so the drivers can do more running, maybe potentially. But I mean, I'm not the FIA, but
yeah, we are. We consider it. They are at the minute.
I think it's a good thing to trial, see how it goes. I think with a couple of tweaks, I think it could work, and we have seen from results it creates unpredictability, and that's, I think, what we want to see at the minute, considering we hear the Dutch national anthem every week now. So
literally know off by heart at this point.
We all think of the action. I saw a lot of comments on Twitter during the race saying that people were falling asleep.
It wasn't the greatest race to watch. I was expecting a bit more excitement, shall we say. I was feeling a bit more battles between Lewis and Max, but obviously Lewis's car just couldn't fight up there this weekend, and I think that just shows Mercedes are just not there with the car this year. So I don't know how Lewis is feeling about all this, considering the contract situation as well.
It was a shame to see him fall back so quickly off the start, after he'd got a really good pole position, and his track record around this circuit as well. It's one of his best tracks. Just to see, he couldn't even really, he was saying he couldn't really even keep up with the McLarens.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit. I think they've still got a little bit of work to do at Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, I think probably the first 5 corners was like, oh, here we go, great race coming,
Yeah.
Lando's overtake on Lewis was very impressive, I have to say, around the outside of turn 3, I'm going to say 3 and 4. And obviously Max, of course, you know what Max is going to do, turn 1, squeeze him out. Oscar Piastri comes down the inside, goes up to P2. I was thinking, here we go, we're cooking here, could get a 1-2 potentially, as they said in pre-build, on socials, because I actually was expecting Max and Lewis to come together, and I think they did touch a slight bit, but no real major damage, of course. But then after that, just the top 3, Max, Lewis, and not Lewis, Oscar and Lando just went off in the distance, left Lewis behind, as you mentioned. I don't think the Mercedes is good on race pace around there. It just didn't look planted as it was in the practice sessions. But we know in quali trim it's just a quick car. And we know Lewis is Lewis. He knows this track. He's obviously broke the record. 9 poles on a single track, more than anyone now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought something could be cooking, could be a cracking race, but obviously I think it was overhyped and turned out to be a bit of a snooze fest in the end, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was other battles though. We could mention Perez going through the field, getting a podium was pretty impressive, which we should really expect considering he's in a Red Bull.
I was gonna say he's in a Red Bull, so is it as impressive as other people bringing, like for example George Russell qualifying down in 18th and him finishing in 6th was. Did he finish 6th? Yeah, he was 6th, wasn't he?
6th, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think his move on Piastri was, good, clean. I think Piastri and McLaren, I would say, a little bit, trying to get maybe a penalty out from the FIA, but obviously it was no further action, and it actually damaged Oscar's floor, and that's why he dropped off, which was a bit like, where could he have come? Could he have been matching Lewis in the end? Maybe, but you could just saw with damage on the floor, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Downforce. So we know McLaren's a really highly downforce car. With the drag it has, it's not as bad as other teams, but a hell of a lot better than it was in Saudi Arabia when they were like at the back of the grid. Let's not forget those times, eh?
No, definitely not. I think the point that you made about Mercedes and their quali trim is interesting, because at the end of the race when the fuel had burnt off, they picked up a bit, didn't they? Their pace sort of came back to them, and I think that's obviously something that they really need to look at, is why when they have not got as much weight on the car is the performance so much better.
Yeah, and I think George proved it, coming, as you said, from 18th all the way up to P6, and for the last majority of the race had the fastest lap of the race, and was over the second half quicker than the guys ahead of him, including, but the biggest surprise to me was Ferrari.
My God, that pit stop.
The certain pit stop, and they just had
Don't even have any words.
They just had no pace. And it's quite shocking when they were up like the second best team, and now I think now they're the 5th fastest team. If I'm honest, with McLaren now probably second quickest, maybe 3rd. I think Mercedes is 2nd now, and Aston is slightly ahead. But even they had a bad race. No one really mentioned about them during the race, apart from Alonso passing his teammate through team orders. So
the last races, Aston Martin seemed to have been not really anywhere, and just like I said in the last episode, have they sort of slowed down on development, and are other teams just catching them back up, and this is sort of more realistically where they belong this season?
I generally thought with their car, because I was at Silverstone when I saw it on track, and it didn't look as planted as normally like other tracks, and I thought we just nailed it down to being circuit specific for their car. It's not like in the high speed section, and because of the Hanger Straight and the Wellington Straight with drag. And then I thought, coming to this track, I thought, not a lot of straights apart from the main one. It's very medium to slow corners, which their car really likes. When we've seen it at like Bahrain, like at the start of the season, Monaco, and the prime example with Alonso. But I just don't get their car now. Like, it doesn't like the fast flowing circuits, but I was expecting to be maybe not fighting for wins, but maybe like top 5. And to see them at the bottom pecking order of the top 10 is just a bit of a surprise for me. And whether they are halting now and focusing on next year, or maybe something's happened in terms of cost cap, potentially.
Oh God.
Well,
who knows?
Maybe, but yeah, I think them and Ferrari were probably the big shocks, I think, for this race, and more so Ferrari in this case.
Yeah, Ferrari had a terrible race. I mean, he didn't finish bad, but I think that pit stop was absolutely ridiculous. There's no way a Ferrari should be doing a 9.4.
No.
And then getting a 5-second penalty for Leclerc going over.
Oh God. Wouldn't have been the one to be that person to tell him that.
No, just went from bad to worst, and it's, you know, you get to a point where you think, how long do they let this continue before they really look into what they can be doing? Because this isn't just this season anymore. This has been going on for a few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, their car concept going into last year was like, wow. I mean, their side pods, how they've got it like on the inside of the side pod, it's like curved and like more airflow goes to the back of the car. And I'm thinking, that's a very nice idea. And it was working, as we saw last year. And then all of a sudden, it's just like a downward spiral. And maybe they're trying new concepts and it's not working with the side pods, or it's the side pods themselves, maybe with the new regulations with trying to stop the porpoising potentially, because they were really bad with it last year. Maybe that rule change has had an effect on the car and it doesn't like running low with low rake. Maybe they have to raise the ride heights a bit and make it a bit more stable for the car. It could be that potentially. That could be the rumor, but maybe hopefully they'll bring upgrades. Maybe, you know, because I think Leclerc now, he's gonna be like, why want to be a Ferrari when it's the 5th fastest car? We want to be in the, you know, be number 1, get the prancing horse back up there, and he may jump ship. You never know if it continues or whatnot. So yeah, just hope for the Ferrari fans out there that they can pray that they get a better car coming soon, or maybe focus on next year, which I think you mentioned, Kel, that they probably will be doing now. So
yeah, I mean, it's not just the car for Ferrari as well, is it? It's just the team just don't seem to gel, don't seem to know sometimes what they're doing. It's very odd for a team that's been in Formula One for as long as Ferrari has, that they can make so many mistakes, it seems, when it comes to strategy and, you know, things like that. It's just, I feel like they really need to be doing something now that's going to turn it around for them.
For sure. I agree. I think they're spending too much time at the circus, you know, with the clown suits on and making bad strategic calls.
Definitely. It wasn't, I mean, I know, okay, it wasn't really full of a lot of action, but I think we've had a lot worse races this season so far than the Grand Prix yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was an all right race, but it wasn't like the best race.
It's not one that I would watch back on F1 TV, but maybe the first 5 laps and then
last few laps.
But I will give a mention to because I know this weekend was the first one they had the kids version of the and I have recorded it. I have watched a tiny bit of it. And I have to say, I think from a child who's never watched it before, you know, when we have it normally, you know, there's lots of information going on. Like theirs is colourful, bright, big, bold, saying Verstappen, leader. And then I noticed as well, there's like little facts that come up, and they were saying about like for an elephant, there's like it's equivalent to like 40 F1 cars or something in weight. So it's like it's good to get this sort of little information out. And then they've got like avatars for the drivers, and I think I saw one bit that was like hover planes or something of the drivers and like flying around the circuit. I was like, oh, this looks. But I think, because obviously I have a son. Yes, he's only 1 at the minute, but if he was old enough, I think it's a great way to get kids in. And I know there's a lot of people talking about it on Twitter and social media saying, what is this? Like, it's so terrible and like it's not what I want to watch. I'm going to unsubscribe from Sky and all that. And I'm thinking, it's not for it's not for a 40-year-old, is it? It's for like
it's for children.
Yeah,
for children. And I think the whole production, the presenters, the kids they had on there were brilliant. I think that was a good one with I can't remember what her name was, but she was interviewing Max Verstappen when she obviously ratted out Lando about the whole trophy smashing on the podium, and it just brings out, you know, character, brings a lot, you know, a bit of the humor side of things, and for their age, I thought they did a pretty good job.
I thought they were all really, really good. They all spoke with a lot of confidence, and they were quite, clued up on what they were talking about. I don't understand a lot of the stuff that was on Twitter about it, to be honest, because I thought they were great. I think they were some of them were more insightful than some of the actual presenters that we see sometimes on there, to be honest.
Yeah. I love the little section. I think she was called Scarlett, if I remember.
Yeah, Scarlett, that's it.
And she was with Ted Kravitz, and Ted Kravitz was talking her through what he does as a pit lane reporter, and she seemed really interested in it. She wasn't just like asking questions just to make Ted talk, and he seemed really happy to help her as well. And I think that's going to help a lot of people wanting to, like young kids watching it, wanting to get into the sport, think, oh, I could be like Ted Kravitz one day, or I could be like Brundle, and I could be up there, you know what I mean? So I thought it was a good thing to have, and I hope they do more of it throughout the season or even next season.
Even the drivers as well.
Yeah, the drivers were so like interactive with the kids and talking to them. And when Charles was taking little Braden round his driver's room, I thought that was really sweet of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good, and it's good for the sport going forward. Like you said, with your son, he's only 1 now, but when he starts growing up, it's going to help him. It's going to help him to understand it a bit more and be a bit more sort of engaged with it. I do think it's a good thing.
Definitely.
Next, we go to Spa.
Yeah, we're on to our next sprint weekend.
With the sprint race. Lovely.
I generally forgot it was a sprint race this week. It's one of the creme of the cremes, isn't it? It's for me, one of my favorite tracks.
Yeah, same.
And the unpredictability of the weather, as we all know.
Yeah, we do.
But there's obviously going to be a bit of, down, about what's happened recently in I think it was like the Formula Renault European thing that happened. Yeah. Obviously, Stroll's come out when it happened, and I think that's going to be a lot of people's minds in the back of their head. But apart from that, I mean, it is Spa. It's one that should be on the calendar. It's brought out some cracking races over the year. Well, not recently, but
not with that rain.
But in the past, like I could think of 2000 was probably one of my favourite races with Hakkinen against Schumacher and passing Zonta 3 wide down the Kemmel Straight. Will always be 1 hour. I'll always remember. And there's been so many races that have been good, and there's obviously been controversy. Hamilton Raikkonen 07, I believe it was, when Hamilton lost P1. I think in the end he had a penalty, but when he went off at the last corner. But yeah, I think it'll be a good track, and let's be honest, we know Red Bull are probably going to win again. We know that, but I just hope some teams will bring upgrades and give them a challenge. That's the main thing. I mean,
good to see McLaren get the top step. I know that's very optimistic, but as a I will always hope for that win for us.
Well, I mean, you say that. I mean, I think Zach Brown came out and said that there is an upgrade coming for Spa, which should have been at Hungary, which I think is to do with suspension. So it could be so that could help with ride height, stability, and maybe help with the slower corners. But we know this track is half of it's mainly straights and half of it's corners. Suits the McLaren, I think, with Puon and that right-left chicane. I think it might suit them there. But then obviously McLaren, Zach's come out and said there's even more upgrades coming later in the year where they could fight for wins, according to him, which could be exciting. And we can dream of Lando finally getting a win.
Finally.
Honestly, that day was a very happy day.
I think for Jen, we should hope that Alpine don't get another double DNF and go for a hat trick this week.
I don't know if they do it in Spa. Just any other place but Spa, please. Like, just not Spa. Just want Pierre to have a good race here, because obviously this track is very special to him. So he'll probably have a special helmet this weekend as well. But I just really want a good race for Alpine, because I just feel like everyone, including like the whole team in the garages and back at the factories, are just very much down in the dumps at the minute, because there's just nothing is going their way at the minute. and it just feels like it's against them. Like nobody's done anything wrong. Like that WDNF that happened wasn't their fault, but yet they will sit there and probably blame themselves for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not their fault, is it? Like this week at Hungary, obviously it was not their fault at all. And then in Silverstone with Gasly, obviously Stroll hit him off and broke his suspension. What happened to Ocon? I can't remember. I should know because I was actually at the race.
Yeah, he was there.
I should know, but probably I was fanboying over Lando leading the race.
Yeah.
I do think that their car is a good car. I think it's not obviously Red Bull-esque pace. I think it's decent midfield package they've got, and I actually, from a neutral fan of Alpine, I think it would be good to see them fight again with McLaren. I know it's like 40 points the gap now between them and McLaren now, but we saw it last year. There was a cracking battle between them two towards the final round, and I honestly want to see it again.
Yeah.
And they've got two good drivers, and we know they've had bad history, Gasly and Ocon, like when they were younger, but I think they're two good drivers, got lots of knowledge, experience, and if you just avoid getting in people's others incidents, then I think they could get a decent points finish, and maybe their car will suit them this week at Spa potentially.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But sprint races don't really go well for Gasly, so we'll see come Saturday how I feel.
What do we think about the circuit as a sprint race circuit?
I just think, I think it's not the right track to have a sprint race.
I'm kind of like one half yes, other half no. I think you've got the straights, DRS overtakes. I think great opportunity there, but then obviously lack of overtaking potentially in the middle sector. May see some people attempt some bold moves at Puon, maybe, but I'm kind of. I think it depends on the weather. I think if it's a wet race, maybe could bring some spice. If it's in the dry, I mean, Max will just wander off in the distance, or Perez, and whatnot. But I'll be very interested to see what teams do this week at Spa. Do they sacrifice, for the sprint, or do they sacrifice sprint performance to go for the race? And obviously, I think we know we'll probably go for the race side of things. But I mean, all we just got to do is just put a load of sandbags in the Red Bull, give them loads of weight, have them have drag, and or have them on like the lowest engine mode and see if they can win the race from the back.
I was gonna say, I mean, even just trying telling them that they have to start from the back, but I think even then it's not going to take too long really for Max to work his way back through.
Well, it was like Perez at Silverstone as a prime example of that. Got into the points quite comfortably, I think, and their car is just too good, and I think this track will suit them a lot, based on especially their recent upgrade with the where they've trimmed the side pod a little bit on the front with the intake, and apparently it's to create more, airflow and obviously makes the car a bit more planted. And as we've seen at every track this season, their car is just too good.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid, viewers, it's going to be one of those ones again. So get your PJs on, get your blanket and pillow, and get on the sofa and
have a nap.
Have a nap for 44 laps.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just watching the race that's behind Max Verstappen, really.
Yeah. We know Max is going to win, so it's whatever happens behind.
I think Toto Wolff put it correctly. It was like an F1 car versus a load of F2 cars.
That's very true.
Especially at this track and Monza, when after the summer break, I think it's going to be literally an F1 car versus F2, or even F3 cars.
Could be F3 at this point.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. Definitely could be right. It's just unstoppable this year, that car. Unstoppable.
Yeah, it really is.
Cost cap. Eventually.
We'll have to wait and see who's been naughty this time.
I mean, it's 3 teams, potentially.
Potentially, yeah. we'll see. It would be very interesting if it is someone like Mercedes after everything that's happened with Red Bull.
Oh God.
I think from what I've heard, it's either Aston Martin was one, Red Bull was another, and Mercedes were the 3 teams in question. But it's all rumours, it's sort of Italian media, but I mean, I won't be surprised if it's Aston, let's be honest.
No.
Yeah, that's very true.
How they've magically appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Maybe Mercedes I could see, obviously, completely new car with the side pods going, maybe. But it all depends on there's little things, because Aston's a good example with the Valkyrie, because apparently they've used F1 components with that, and it actually contributes to the cost cap, apparently. And obviously Red Bull may have been a part of that as well. So, or it's gone towards catering.
Yeah, one of them.
We will see. That's another thing to look out for as well. But yeah, overall, I think I'm excited. I'm always excited going into a race weekend. So we'll see
We'll see what happens.
We will indeed.
We'll see if it rains.
Yeah, it's definitely a place where they can play a big part in how the weekend goes.
Yeah.
In Spa.
Got to call a bold prediction.
No.
Max to retire. Lando to win a race. McLaren double podium. I'm calling it right now on this
very bold prediction.
On this podcast.
We'll have to bring you back for the next one if you're correct.
Yeah, we'll have to get you on, definitely.
Make a public apology statement to every McLaren fan that
sorry.
watches this.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, but yeah, so thanks Ryan for joining us this week and filling in for Kay. It was great to have you on.
Yeah, we loved it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you guys.
You're welcome. We'll definitely have you on again at some point. If you want to come back, that is.
Of course, I mean, if Lando wins at Spa, I mean, the whole bucket hat, whole McLaren merch is getting on. You know, we're gonna have a party here. You know,
I'll just sit in the corner and cry. It's all right, guys.
Yes, we'll be having a party. Then, Jen, we will have everything crossed for you for this weekend.
I just want to go to race. I really, really do.
We'll pray for points for our
points. I'll do at this point.
A point. We'll pray for a point.
A point.
A point.
We'll do. Just one.
Just one. I'll do.
Oh, bless. No. Hopefully, it's. It can only get better.
Yeah,
exactly.
Can't get much worse than 2 double DNFs unless it's 3.
Take McLaren as inspiration.
Yeah, that's it.
One upgrade can make a big difference.
Yeah, let's be optimistic.
# pray for Jen.
Yeah, let's get that started.
Definitely. Otherwise, we really will have to do a GoFundMe for your therapy.
I think I need them.
Okay, well, I think it's time to say goodbye, and we will see you all for the podcast next week, and we will be talking about Spa. So have a nice week, and we'll see you soon.
See you later.
See ya.